Hi, sorry we are running behind. This
It's
is
okay.
day running over.
Yeah, I seem to remember him saying it wasn't going to be an issue.
Yeah, I'm not happy.
No. Well, that's okay. You look great.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Mark, hello.
Hey, Marc.
Let's see. Make host, make co-host. Okay. Yes. All right, Mark, can you give it a whirl and see if you have screen sharing permissions? Yes, excellent. Okay. Great,
Party.
great, great. That went much smoother this time.
Yay.
All right. Well, people are probably going to be late joining us since this is late getting going, but we will see what happens.
I'm here.
Yes, Wendy and Mark are here. The important part has started, right? All right. How are you guys doing?
Doing
Oh,
well.
it's hard.
I hear you.
Otherwise, pretty good. No, it went well today. The market, I wouldn't say it was super, super busy, but it was busy enough. So that was cool.
That's good. Are people adapting to the new time?
Yeah, this week it seemed like they were better adapted to the time. I think I caught people by surprise last week. Plus, today it was really kind of overcast, and it was
Yeah.
sprinkling when I was on my way in. So um, people came. I'd say we started getting people around 1 or so, and then it started to pick up a little bit. A lot of people came in just to look around and stuff like that. I get the sense people are early Christmas shopping. So
That's good. We need
yeah,
more of that.
yeah.
All
So
right. Well, I'm not sure where everybody is. We will get going so we can keep ourselves on time here.
maybe like me, they didn't read the thing saying they had to pre-register, even though I
Yeah, I
posted
mean,
that.
I've got a lot of people who are, and Dale's texting me nonstop. I just got a panic call from Carol who was having trouble getting in, so I
Oh,
don't know if Carol's gonna fall out. We will just play
They
it
hadn't
cool by
received
ear.
the pre-registration link, so I forwarded to everybody at the Arches meeting that just ended about a half an hour ago. So
Oh, okay.
they all probably sent out their pre-registration in the last 30 minutes. Does that have to be manually approved by somebody?
No, Zoom should just let folks in.
The pre-registration, because I got when I did my pre-registration, I then got an email back from Elena Romanova.
Yeah,
So is that
that's
automatic?
yeah, that's technically me. We all share Elena's account, so it just is automatically set up to do that.
Okay, yeah, because I assume that like I said, they should all have clicked on that probably recently, in which case then they'd all be then now trying to get back on.
Yeah. All right. Well, it's silly doing the intro with just us, so I'll give it a few more minutes.
all right.
If we get a little behind time, we can always skip W5 and W6 since they are not actually participating. I was just going to give them a little lip service.
6 and 7. Because 5 at least gave you some photos, right? Because 6 and 7 gave you nothing.
Yeah. Yeah. I've
To
got
show you,
nothing. That's true. 5, I've got 2 photos, nothing from 6 and 7. You're right.
yeah. So for 6 and 7, so for 5 I've got to the 2 photos we've got, but for 6
Yep.
I pulled up the bio shot that Maricela
Oh.
got, and for 7 I did the background shot that Anita Damron's got, just so you have something going on in the background as we're talking about them.
Okay, that sounds great. All right, we got somebody joining us, so we have to behave ourselves now.
Oh man, I've been behaving myself all day. I don't know how much longer I can do this.
uh,
So we got
all right.
streaming after this. We're going to be playing Fortnite. So
Oh, excellent.
yeah.
All right, well, we'll get started on 5 then. So, Mark, if you could bring up 5, I'd appreciate it.
Oh, we're gonna start with the introductions?
Yeah, since we have some people with us now, we'll get going.
No, do we want to start with introductions first before we move to 5?
Yeah, well, I'll go real quick. Yes. Hi. Welcome tonight to our virtual second Saturday for our October featured artist at Workhouse Arts Center. My name is Sharon Moores. I am the artist liaison here at Workhouse. And our host tonight is Marc Pachon. He is one of our Arches Gallery artists who is a photographer. He's going to be joining me tonight to tell you about each of our featured artists on campus this month.
It sounds like it just started. It's so weird.
We just started. You're right.
Did just start. That's correct. So we're a little late
Oh.
tonight because of Clay International.
Oh, okay, great.
There was a Clay International reception. So we're going to get going. This is our first building on campus tonight is building W5. And this is a group show that they are having. It is called Tangerine. It was the theme and everybody could interpret that any way they wanted. The first picture tonight
This
is
Carol's Room by Michelle Montelbano.
Yes. And Michelle is one of our newer artists on campus. This piece, as you can see, is a room. And what is cool about Michelle as an artist is she likes to do pieces that are familiar but unexpected. A lot of her artwork is of landscapes with a really unexpected element somewhere in the sky or in the meadows, the grass. The tree line, and her paintings of interiors are kind of the same thing, whereas you're not focusing on what's in the room, but what is not in the room, the empty spaces. They make them very compelling. You're kind of searching for something in the piece.
Oh, baby.
And this piece is The March Goes On by Phoebe Peterson.
Phoebe is an interesting artist. I really enjoy her work. Phoebe's work usually consists of a lot of landscapes that are inspired by her New England upbringing. She usually every summer travels up to New England, gathers a lot of photos to help her create new pieces when she's back in town for the rest of the year. But this piece is clearly inspired by the Women's March. And I would like to say it's a little bit inspired by her daughter, Phoebe's daughter, Carolina Peterson, is also an artist, and she focuses very much on feminist art, and feminism is a focus of a lot of her linoleum prints and her mixed media pieces, and this piece feels very much inspired by that, not only in the subject matter, but if you see it's really kind of blocky, broken up. A little more like a collage, a mixed media collage like Carolina does. It's a neat piece when you know a little bit about the background of Phoebe.
So next we're moving to W6. The featured artist for Building 6 this month is Marisela Rumberg. Marisela Rumberg is she's primarily a fiber artist and quilter, but she works in many mediums, including pen and ink to mixed media. So Maricela believes that nature imbues everything with a story, a legend, or a myth, and she strives to discover it and find the best mix of technique and medium to set it free. And her instincts were shaped by her grandfather, who was a chef and a painter. I'd like to hear more about that combination of professions at some point. Maricela also teaches at the Workhouse, and she's got several workshops running this fall and in winter in Zentangles and papermaking. And the Workhouse website has got more information about both the online classes, real time and recorded.
Okay, and we are going to, anybody have any questions first about either Michelle Montelbano or Phoebe Peterson or Marisela Rumberg? Okay. We are going to move on real quick to W7, which I did not get info from W7 on time, but I believe that Anita is with us. Anita, are you there?
I am.
Hello, thanks for joining us. This is an unexpected treat. How are you doing?
Very good. I am so sorry. I didn't want to use the COVID excuse, but that's what it is.
That's all right.
Not being prepared.
So we don't have your pieces up, as you can see, since we didn't get your info in time, but Marc found one of your, an extreme close-up of one of your mosaics. Would you mind telling us a little bit about how you do your work?
Sure. I'd be happy to. So I've been making mosaics for about 14 years, and my process has evolved. So it's just like any other art form. You've got kind of a base. The medium that we use is typically glass, stained glass, but this piece you're looking at is actually very old. And it's got tiles and shells and stones and millefiori. So with mosaic, you're painting with glass, and you are, one second. I'm talking about presenting. Just need to let them see now. Sorry. I'm sorry. So with this process, sometimes I am led by the material, and sometimes I am thinking about an application, because it's a lot of times what we're doing is we're kind of adding a covering to something.
Yeah.
So there's my face, and here's my, so I've got, here's a piece, it's probably a little better than that one. This is layered mosaic. This is an example of where we took, it's almost like a mixed media. We layered a lot of things together, and it's really fun. Mosaics are really fun. It's kind of like, in one way, it's like putting puzzle pieces together, and glass is very reflective. A lot of mosaics are made with glass. So it kind of, it throws the light back, and it's a very easy art form to get started with. So
may I ask you, you do both glass mosaics and stained glass while you're using the same medium. They're very different styles. Is it hard to switch back and forth between the two, or?
Actually, that's a good question. I do stained glass, I do fusing and painting and mosaic. And mosaic is probably the most time consuming. And unlike something like painting, where sometimes you can layer on, you can layer with mosaic, but each piece you put down is like a brush stroke of color. And I don't really find it difficult, because when I'm working with glass, there are certain best practices in cutting glass. So as long as you're comfortable with cutting glass, you don't need to be as precise with mosaic as you do with stained glass. If you're making a stained glass panel, and Karen Abbott in our building, for example, has some beautiful pieces up, and she's got perfect lines in her work. She's really fantastic at the stained glass. And then we've got other really fantastic people that are much better than I am at fusing in the building as well. But I don't find it that difficult to switch back and forth, but there are differences, because with mosaic, every piece, you put the piece down and it kind of stays there. And you're dealing with opacities and transparencies in material, which, even though you do have that in paint, you're not layering. So it's a really good question. I wish I thought about that.
You've done a little for us. And hey, while we have you on, I want to say you're actually teaching some classes this season for the fall and winter at Workhouse, correct?
Yes, we've been running classes online since April. I think we started in April, and we've got a class set up for right now in December. And I didn't put anything on the calendar for October and November, but we're back in December live online. So and we've got the formula down pat, so it works really well. And we've had people joining the class from California, Wisconsin, Arizona, New Jersey, all over the country.
That's great. That's great. Well, good. I think it's fantastic that you're able to move it to online to keep everybody safe.
Yes, and thank you. There are a lot of in-person classes going on in the building too. I don't know if people realize that, but they can go in and work on the flame and do fusing and things like that in person if they want to do that as well. So
Great.
And any of our participants have any questions for Anita?
No.
Okay.
All right, Anita, thanks so much for joining us tonight.
thank you, Sharon, for everything.
Yeah, you're welcome. Okay, normally at this point we would have a little musical interlude, and I was hoping we would tonight, but unfortunately our performer was called into work. So I'm just gonna tell you a little bit about some events we have going on campus really quick. First, those of you who are familiar with Workhouse know that we do a haunted trail every year. This year we weren't sure whether we were gonna be able to do it or not, but our performing arts crew figured out a way to do a safe drive-through haunted trail this year, and it's called Nightmare Alley. And you can get tickets for the event online. We're only selling tickets online this year, not at the door. And it is a really safe, socially distanced way to participate in our trail, where there's 13 stations set up around our 55-acre campus where you can drive through, and at each station there's some thrills and chills that are presented to you from our performing arts staff and also some of our local theater students. So if you are looking for something to do this Halloween, that's a great way to get out and have some thrills in a safe environment. The other thing that we have coming up very soon is our annual gala. And same thing, that's usually a big formal event that we have across our property, and we couldn't figure out at first a safe way to do it this year, but we have decided to do it as a drive-in event, which is kind of piggybacking on our very successful drive-in theater this year. So we've moved this into more of an outdoor social event. It's going to be a little on the cool side, so meals and whatnot are going to be brought to everyone's vehicle, and we are still going to be doing our really popular raffle. I think Carol Mather is with us now, and Carol, I believe, sold tickets with me last year for this raffle, so she can tell you how wildly popular this part is. There's a lot of great items in the raffle basket, which if you buy a ticket to the gala, you can get chances for the raffle. As you can see, it's worth almost $3,000 at this point.
Yep.
A lot of stuff in there, including a 3-month membership to Workaway Solutions, which is a offsite work hosting site. There's private class at Total Wine that's worth $500. That's a wine tasting class. A wine tasting for 4 at Paradise Springs, and a lot of other great items like that. So if you are interested in participating in our gala this year, go to our website. Like with the haunt, that's where you can get tickets. And we hope we'll see you there. Okay.
We'll be moving on to our presentation to the artists in W9 Arches Gallery. And our first artist will be Jean Moty, who I believe is with us right now. Jean, are you there?
Yes, I am. How you doing, Mark?
Good, welcome. So the first piece I've put up on the screen here is your piece, George and Emily. And,
yeah, this is one of the first pieces I did in this particular style. And so my inspiration for this was, I needed to put something over my fireplace. And, you go through these manor houses in Europe and you see all these paintings of people that were the owners of them back in history. And I said, I need something like that over my fireplace. So I kind of threw these together, and there they are, George and Emily. And then my next piece, which I think is Lucy. This one I was thinking, well, they need a daughter. So I kind of threw this one together. And she's actually a composite of my daughter and my 2 sisters and their personalities. So that was the inspiration. And this was a really fun piece to do. I enjoyed putting it together.
now these are all oil paint on canvas, is that right?
Yes, they are. And Yeah, I'm just losing my train of thought here. Rolling into the next piece, I think, isn't it Frenchie? Yeah, this one was, so Lucy needed a dog and a pet. And of course she had a babysitter. So this is Frenchie, their dog, and their babysitter. And that was the inspiration to kind of drive into this piece. And the style that you guys can see here, it's, I'm kind of inspired by, you know, the Bauhaus movement, as well as the De Stijl movement from the Netherlands, and using the primary colors and very sharp, crisp detail is kind of the way I like to go with these sorts of things. And then this one, you know, Frenchie 2 up there on the right-hand side, I decided I want to do some dogs. So these are my dog pieces. I've got a Big Dog, that's the blue guy there. Then I got Hot Dog, which is the little red dog, the dachshund, and then Frenchie, obviously the French Bulldog. And these ones are recently completed, and we're in the gallery a month ago, and hopefully we'll get them back in there again soon so folks can check them out. And then this one I think is, I call it A9. This is my more geometric pieces. So not doing just figurative type things in this style, but I do have a bunch of geometric works. I have 3 at home right now that are in various states of completion. So if you're interested in seeing those, they should be in the gallery in a month or 2. And then these are my other pieces. These go in a completely different direction. This is my more meditative pieces. I work in impasto. These again are oil on canvas. Work in impasto, which is thick paint. So it's oil base, and obviously I put a little dab of color in here. So the concept behind these is the circle is an individual, and the geometric shapes, the texture, and the color are all kind of the personality as I see of that individual. And this one is my my daughter, and then the next one is my girlfriend Jill.
So
And,
is that what you did? Is that what you did for the one that I got from you?
Yes, exactly. And that one was the one that you liked, was inspired off of, I actually think it was my sister.
Oh, okay.
So yeah. And I've got a whole bunch more of these. I actually had a show that was teed up to be the whole family that I've done, because I've done all my siblings, I've done my grandparents and my parents, and I was going to have all those in the gallery, and then COVID hit. So that show never happened. You can go into my blog inside my my website. You can actually see a bunch of those there. But I do plan, when things open up again, I do plan to have that show. So it's on deck.
Nice. Hey,
Yeah,
Jean, I
thanks.
have a question for you that I've never gotten to ask you. For your geometric style Bauhaus ones, they almost always
Right.
have a alphanumeric title. Why?
You know, I don't really remember how I got to that. I just started going with A for maybe abstract, and then number is just a numerical sequence as I go through the pieces, as I do some. So yeah, no rhyme or reason. I just haven't put names to them specifically.
Well, that's good to know. I've stood in front of one or two going, why A9? So the great mystery is solved.
I'm always a great fan of all the texture you use in some of these pieces. Is that something that you feel like oil can uniquely kind of deliver for these?
Yeah, you can do it also with, obviously with acrylic, but I don't work in acrylic. I like to work with the oil just because it's walnut oil, and I add some natural impasto type things. I try to work with natural materials, and I've never really worked with acrylic. A little bit in the past, but not much. It dries too fast, and especially when I'm doing these pieces, I need time to work the paint onto the canvas, and the oil gives me that time because it takes quite a while for it to dry.
Interesting. Oh, great. And do we have any questions from any of our other participants?
Well, thanks for joining us, Jean. We appreciate it.
Thanks for the time. You guys have a great evening.
Thanks.
You too.
Thanks.
And now we're going to move over to another Arches artist, Carol Mather. And her.
Hello.
Hey, Carol.
Hi. This was a really fun piece. This was a paint pour, And paint pours are fun, but they're also unpredictable. They have kind of a mind of their own. Believe it or not, when I first poured this, there was some white in the center. And when it dried, the white disappeared. So, like I said, they have kind of their own mind sometimes. And the paint can keep moving, even when you think, well, it's done. It may not exactly be done. So, but they're fun and they're challenging, but you can also, there's so many variations you can do with a paint pour. You can wait for a paint pour to dry completely and then add to it. You can paint over it. You can embellish it with animals, with people, with whatever you dream up. You know, you can put a forest, you can put the night sky could be the pour, and then have pine trees below and a deer looking at, you know, there's so many things you can do with paint pours. That's why I like them. I think they're fun and versatile. So this one, oh, okay. All right, no, you can go to the next one.
Sorry, didn't mean to rush you along.
And of course, I do other things too. I don't do just paint pours. The big wave, that's the one on the lower left, was kind of celebrating my trip to Hawaii. You know, I finally had my dream trip. It was on my bucket list. And I remembered going to, with my friends down to watch them surf, where the big waves are. And I was absolutely amazed at the size of the waves as they would come rolling in. I had never seen them that big. I mean, I've seen it on TV, but when you see it in person, it just reminds you of just the magnitude and the strength of nature. So that's the big wave. And then the one above is also from my trip to Hawaii. We would go and watch a lot of sunrises and also sunsets, but that kind of reminded me of that. And of course, I had to do a jellyfish. The jellyfish is actually in glow-in-the-dark paints. So if whoever buys it decides that if they have a black light, it's going to be really cool. So that's those three. And this one, I loved it. It's an abstract. I just decided to do something totally different. And I call them ribbons because they reminded me of a lot of different colored ribbons. And I already have somebody interested, possibly. I was contacted. So, but that was a lot of fun. That's acrylic.
This one reminds me, I don't know if you remember the WMAI artist. We used to have Cheryl Wilson. It's a little like her pours.
Yes, you're absolutely right. And I'm still friends on Facebook with Cheryl. So yeah, she saw that too, and she said it was awesome. She really liked it. But you're absolutely right.
Oh, that's fun. I'm glad you connected with her.
Yes. We're still in touch. And this one is so cool. This is a paint pour, and it's where when you put your paints in a cup, first of all, you have to mix the paints with a binder so it doesn't mix with all the other colors and make mud. And as you pour it on the canvas, you're going to do it in a circular motion. And that's what creates the rings, the sense of rings. And I thought when I finished it, I thought, I feel like I'm looking into the abyss, being drawn into the center. And so I really loved it. I think it turned out well, the colors, and it's just really, really interesting. So I was very pleased with that one.
Are the bubbles like the bubbles at the top anything you can control, or do those just come naturally and you leave them in there?
Those were cells. Sometimes cells will react automatically. What happens sometimes, there's little bubbles in the paint. You have to use, I should have mentioned this. You need to use a flame to bring any bubbles up to the surface and pop them. Because if you don't do that and your paint dries, it's going to leave an absent, space, which isn't going to look good.
Yeah.
So yeah, and you can actually create cells by adding silicone to the paint. That's a pain in the, you know what, because you have to wait till your painting completely dries, wait a couple of days. I would do 48 hours, and then I look for silicone to come up to the surface.
Yeah.
Because it'll come up to the surface of your painting. You have to get rid of that before you seal your painting, because if you don't, you're going to have all this little rippling, and it's going to look gross. So it's a lot more work involved if you use silicone.
You have to be patient like Jean.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. But I'm interested in all forms of art, abstract art as well. This is another paint pour. I was really pleased with this one because it reminds me of a reflection in the water. Like when you hold a glass and, you know, there might be like a colored liquid in the glass and there's ice cubes and stuff. And as you hold it towards some other liquid, it reflects in it. And that's what I thought this reminded me of, like reflections in the water. So really, I was very pleased with this one.
The first time I saw this one, I was trying to figure out what was the original image before the distortion occurred. I was like, is there like
It was also
field or something like that?
it was also a ring pour. So you'll become familiar with that term. You can, like I said, it's so versatile. Ring pours I love because you can move the paint around on the canvas and do different things with it. But I love this one. This one's really one of my favorites.
Oh, beautiful.
Nice.
What is the size of this piece?
You're gonna ask me that. Not huge, but not small. It's I would say like 11 by. It's like long and I don't know. I can't remember, Mark. Sorry.
Medium.
We'll say 12
It's
by
medium.
18.
Something like that. Yeah, just
Okay.
that sounds good.
Well, thanks so much, Carol. And do we have any questions from our participants for Carol?
Easier questions.
Yeah, don't ask me the size.
But these pieces are available right now at our Arches Gallery, right?
Yes, and you just, you know, you can contact me. You can, but you know, just let the person at the desk on Saturdays. So whoever's on duty, I'll let them know, and they can be in touch with me. So, but yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's fun work, and I do other types of artwork, as you could see by the wave and the jellyfish and stuff. I'm working on some birds right now. So, my mother was an oil painter. But she always said, why don't you focus on one thing and do that one thing very, very, very well? And I said, Mom, I get bored. So I have to diversify myself. I want to learn everything. So, because we only have one life, you know, and I want to shove as much into it as I possibly can.
Well, Carol, you have some pieces in 16 too, right? Some jewelry?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do.
Yeah.
In the gift shop. And
Yeah.
I will be changing those around a little bit too. Thank you, Wendy. I love you.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us tonight, Carol.
And I also make resin jewelry. I do have 2 new pieces. I didn't take a picture of them, but there's 2 new pieces in the Arches Gallery. They're butterflies. They're beautiful. So if you have a chance, you want to go check them out, please do.
All right. Great. Thanks very much.
You're welcome.
All right. And now we are going to move on to our host, who is a photographer in W9 and is also part of the group show this month.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah, so I got into, actually, my day job was not particularly artistic, and so a couple of years ago I started getting an artistic edge, so I started sketching, and I was sketching mainly from photos, and so decided it would be better if I could actually use my own photos, a little bit more creative, and then fell in love with the actual photography itself. So I work mainly with sort of messing with shadows, lights, and trying to capture movement in a lot of my shots. So I work with a lot of dancers, a lot of ballerinas, and a lot of models where I will do things to kind of capture various bits of motion. So this model Kim is a great local ballerina and model I got to work with for the first time last month. One of the series of post quarantine shoots I was able to do socially distanced, but because we work in a very large open studio, but all of the colors on her are achieved through gels on the flash lighting around her. Audrey Malek is another local ballerina. She works out of the Washington Ballet Company. I actually did a shoot with her last night, but this was one of the pieces that it's currently up at Arches, but is also part of a larger show that unfortunately, much like Jean's show, got canceled because of the cancellation of all the events. It was a March show. It was scheduled for the 14th, and on the 13th, the workhouse shut down. So it was one of those events, but this was a series of shots I did where I had this fabric running through a number of different shots, and Audrey is actually holding it for a couple of them, and she's one of those just naturally very talented, very at ease, sort of being on point, and just sort of making a very difficult sort of pose for anyone else look very easy, and it's great to kind of capture that with her. This is work from last month with Catherine Perez. This is accomplished with an LCD projector and a palette that I had worked out, hitting the wall behind her, and then kind of transposing those colors with the colors on her. And it's great to kind of get a chance to work with new people around the area, but also get a chance to kind of have an idea about how I want to use colors in new ways, and find local models who are like, yeah, this is a good idea, and we're going to work with that. So this is this print is up in metal in Arches Gallery right now. Most of my prints are in metal, except for two of my very large prints, which are up in a large acrylic, because at that size, the acrylic kind of adds an additional sort of depth to the picture.
And can you explain why you use metal?
I find that the metal printing process preserves a lot of the color and depth better than printing on the paper or on canvas and things like that. I do print on canvas sometimes if I'm going to be doing a mixed media piece where I'm going to throw additional sorts of effects into it. I had a piece up until last month where I had supplemented my photograph with airbrush work around it, and it was sort of it was kind of creating a green painting to create kind of a miasma. It was a plague mask photo of someone kind of
neat.
fired by Corona at the time. And I sort of surrounded the entire thing with this miasma of green, sort of smoke coming off of her, and paint after the fact. But for these sorts of shots where I really want to make sure that the colors are coming through, metals wound up being. Glass works well too. However, I have lost too many prints to glass breaking. Just the fragility of it is sort of in the end a deal breaker for me, because I usually only do print runs of one shot. I'll do these prints 20 by 24 shot. I'll do one run of it. It'll be signed, set up, and ready to go. And as opposed to running off like 50 shots or things like that. And if that print turns into a piece of glass, which if someone just hits it wrong, just cracks right down the middle, it becomes a useless bit. So this shot is called Arrow. It's the ballerina is her name is Anna Russell. Actually, she's one of those people who's become quite internet famous just for her modeling across the world. But she and I worked together a number of times. A lot of people who work with dance shots will do very quick sort of shutter clicks where they do like 50, you'll hear like maybe I might have seen in movies or TV when someone's taking a photograph and you hear the click, 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 or they're taking 100 different shots at once. And then from that, they'll be able to choose the shot where they get the shot where they want. I don't shoot like that because I use a lot of flash in order to capture things in a certain moment in time. The flashes I use can't recycle that quickly. So I have to basically do the same shot over and over and over again until I get it at just the right time. So in this situation, Anna's got a bit of fabric, which we have flown up, and I've then used basically surrounded her with the red light behind her, white lights in front of her, and then I do that shot, and if I don't catch it, then we need to go back and do it again. But it allows me to do these sorts of shots in a different way than you would get if you were doing the sort of high key, just lots of constant light around the person and a lot of shutter speeds. It's a different technique than most other sort of action photography that I've seen does. And I like it, and so, as far as I've seen, I'm one of the few people doing it, so I kind of like the fact that it has become kind of a signature for my work. This is another example of kind of what light can do in terms of stopping things. So this is this shot was taken in Los Angeles. The model here, Riley Ann, very, very talented model, and we had a water effect going around her. The flash stops the water mid in motion. Because of the way that the flash sort of cycles through, it makes the water drops look like they're going the opposite direction than they are. And I had about 7 different flashes around the studio, which had, after running the water for as long as we had, it had a very fine layer of water over everything, which then kind of increased the sort of distortion effect of the flashes, which is exactly what I wanted to happen. And so it created a very kind of outdoor effect in the end for me, kind of but also a very science fiction effect that I was very happy with. And this is one of the series of shots I did with her. I call the series Synthesis. Tight end is very. I was very happy with how this turned out in the end. And then my last shot is actually featured this month in Shutter Magazine, which is available in your local bookstores starting Monday. This particular model, Kaylee Ann, she's an up-and-coming model, and we went out to a location in a farm way down south in King George. And in order to get this effect, what I did was I created a very long tube, and I filled it up with a whole bunch of different colors of holly powder, which is the powder they use for the Holly Festival, the Indian Festival of Colors. And then her friend stood above her on a step ladder, and 3, 2, 1, he dumps the entire thing out, and I try to capture it. And if I don't capture it, we have to reset everything and do it all over. But in this case, it worked out just fine, and we got it. So it was a success story. And this is another print, a print of one on metal that we've currently got on the back wall over at Arches. And I believe that is the last of my pieces.
Well, nice. So since you use a lot of special effects, and because of the way the type of flash you use, how long do your shoots tend to be in general? I know it probably differs depending on what your special effects are, but some of these effects seem like they're ones where it could take quite a while to get the exact shot you're looking for, or do you find you have a lot of happy accidents that aren't quite what you were expecting but end up looking fantastic?
I will sometimes evolve based on a happy accident. I'll have a situation where I'll have 7 flashes set up and one of them won't fire, and I like that effect much more. And so then I'll retool the shoot to kind of capture that effect, because light's very unpredictable. When I got into photography from my pencil sketches, the biggest thing to finding out was just 90% of photography, at least the kind that I do, is really how the lighting hits things, how the light bounces off things, how it's hitting the walls around it, how different colors are increasing or decreasing the amount of illumination. Like red will really decrease the amount of light on something significantly, whereas blue doesn't really do that and still keeps a lot of the light in the shots, and kind of adjusting it for things like that. Now for a shot like this, or for a shot like this, usually this is, I will have gone into it with an idea of exactly what I wanted. And then a lot of the adjustments so like this shoot in particular took about 2 hours. About an hour and a half of that was a lot of trying to get the image on the camera to be the image I had in my head. And then when I finally achieved it, kind of making sure that I then had a series of those that I could then walk away with. Because the last thing you want to do is think you've got the shot, get back home and realize, I guess the joke is you had the lens cap on. That doesn't happen here because with the cameras we use, if the lens cap's on, you see nothing. But you just do want to avoid that sort of like, oh, and I was focused on, her ear instead of her face or something like that. And that's so for a lot of these shots, it's the idea is already there, but then the setup is just making sure that that can be realized.
Very cool. Does anybody have any questions for Marc?
I'm amazed at what the human body can do, because that one, she's doing the split literally in the air, and it's like, oh my God.
It's even wider than a normal split.
Yes.
Yeah, there's some really amazingly talented people. I actually I got to shoot with a Cirque du Soleil contortionist a couple of years ago.
Wow.
Whoa.
That too. There's some amazing people out there who can do some amazing stuff, and a lot of it is tied to this idea of motion. And so, since photography is such a static medium, it's always kind of fun to challenge myself to see, can I create a sense of motion even though it's not a moving picture? And so people who can do things like that definitely make this more interesting, and I think you're more effective at getting that kind of sense across.
Wow.
Hey, Marc, so just to clarify, you don't do any digital manipulation of your photos. So what we see is what you shoot. I mean, it's just amazing.
So I do color correction and things like that, but no, this is like, this is her in this pose. This is the dust on Kaylee. So yeah, that's all there. Basically the post-processing in these shots is things like going through and possibly getting rid of blemishes or things like that. And then every lens creates a distortion effect. And so when you first import it into your system, one of the things you have to do is undo that distortion effect. So these days with technology, my computer can say, oh, you were using a 50mm lens. I know that happens to warp the camera this much. I'm going to undo that. And that's the sort of manipulation I'll do for it. But yeah, but for the most part, this is, this is not digital effects in terms of the colors or the effects being used. This is kind of what the picture was taken of. So.
Yeah, fantastic. Beautiful work.
Thank you.
Marc, thanks so much for joining us as a featured artist tonight.
Oh, my pleasure. It's great to get a chance to talk about my stuff.
Great. All right, and we're going to move on next to our W10 featured artist, Wendy Anderson. Hi, Wendy.
Hello.
Hi, Wendy.
Hi. You can hear me okay, right?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Okay. I was like, my microphone's not red, so I'm good. we game, so I've got a gaming headset. Anyway, the piece you're looking at is I started working with resin. I was primarily, at least at the workhouse, an acrylic painter. But when COVID hit, I decided I wanted to learn something new. And it was kind of an interest I'd sporadically had over my life, you know, from working with plastics in high school. And I thought, well, hey, now's a perfect time. Plus, I wanted to make some dice that had little rubber duckies in them for the gamers in my family, which I did, but those are crazy hard to do. So anyway, while I was waiting for my dice molds from Italy during COVID, which was a lot of fun, I got some other molds that were not from as far away, so that I could play with resin and learn how it worked. I use unicorn resin that's a low VOC, and these are boxes that you can put your dice in. So I was optimistically thinking, once I learn how to do the dice, now I'll have something to put them in. And the coffin molds are big with the Nerdverse. So, and Halloween was coming up, so that's why I made that. That's a mica pour with just some color in it.
It looks like malachite.
I know, it turned out so cool.
Yeah. It's very cool.
Oh, that's pumpkin pie. Oh, polymer clay. I do love the plastics. So I started doing, I talked to Sharon about this once before. I started doing sci-fi cons after taking a couple classes with Larry Elmore, who's a fairly well-known artist for D&D. He was with TSR when Dungeons and Dragons first came out and was responsible for a lot of the pictures of dragons and stuff that we know now, him and his team. So I took a class with him that was twice, that was, he's an oil painter. And I heard someone talk about oil painting versus acrylic earlier, and I'm like, I'm totally the opposite. I wanted to dry quick. But because Larry had to do pieces that were for magazines, they had to be very smooth, so he painted on masonite that was sanded down, and he painted with oil, and I kept dragging my fingers through, which is a whole nother story. It was very difficult and challenging for me to do. At any rate, because of that, and he did the sci-fi cons, I started doing the sci-fi cons. And then when I started doing those, I started sculpting dragons because I have named my business Dream Dragon Studios. So of course, if you're going to have dice, you have to have dice dragons, and I started making them in polymer clay. These are actually some of the smallest ones I've done. They're pumpkin pie is about yay big, and he's in the gallery now since I'm featured artist. But I did him in, it was probably about 3 days if I remember right. But I also did him in stages, like you have to, because I want to squish his head when I put it on the body. So I had to fire his head first, and then I did the rest of his body in stages. So, but he's pumpkin pie. He'll guard the dice. I have a blueberry pie one too. So, okay, this is the aforementioned dice. I call this series of dice that I do. This particular one, sprinkles are for winners. And that's a D20 for those of you who are not familiar with either Dungeons and Dragons, Rollmaster, like half a dozen other tabletop role-playing games. You have 7 dice to play with in order to determine what your character's attributes are, like your charisma or your athletic ability, you know, that kind of thing. And a D20 is one of them, and it's one of the larger dice. So those are actual sprinkles in cake sprinkles, and a dice about yay big that then you have to sand down. I've got like a, what is it now, 8-stage sanding process for them after they come out of the mold. And wow. Yeah, then they get all pretty and inked up. So
I think the important question though is, how does it roll?
Oh my God! You know what? That's a very interesting point. And you get from the Nerdverse, you hear that a lot. Not just how does it roll, but is it has the weight, which honestly you don't really have to worry about unless you're in Vegas. which you really have to worry about then. The sprinkles roll okay. I'm having a little problem getting my steampunk ones to not be weighted on one side because
yeah.
with resin, and Carol can tell you this because
Yes.
it happens with the acrylic too. Things will sink in it, right?
Yep.
And
Yep.
if your dice is like this and you pour the resin to the top or from the top to the bottom, then anything you have in there, like certain glitters or inclusions that I put in with the gears and stuff, will over time, while it's curing, sink to the bottom. And that
It's all on
causes weight on
timing.
one side.
Yeah, it's all
Yeah,
on timing.
exactly.
Well, if the Chris at the
Can-
top, though, I pay extra for that.
Can you do incremental layers, like pour a little, let it dry, and then put
You
in
can.
a steampunk gear, or does it dry as a layer and then is optically
It depends on how
not
you
great?
do it. I have learned, like I've got the a mold that's a big D20, so like it's about the size of my hand, like about that big. And that one I have to do in 3 pours because, and it doesn't have a line unless I move the mold or something. But I have to do it that way because the mold itself is like that big around, right? But the interior, the void, is only like about yay big around, and that's to give it stability so it's not distorted. And when you put the resin in there, the chemical reaction that happens causes what, like Carol was talking about, bubbles, right?
Bubbles,
And
bubbles, more in troubles.
exactly. And I can't get to the inside of it to get those out. Typically, you'd use a pressure pot, but I don't want to blow up my building. So I decided until I know more about that, I'm not going to do that. So it generates this heat, and I need to let that heat dissipate in layers rather than pouring it all at once. The first one I did that I put Legos in, which is the Everything is Awesome dice. I had to, the first one I did, I poured all at once. And not only do Legos float, believe it or not, I was surprised, but the top of it was full of what we call pitting because the bubbles will gather on the surface and it'll kind of freeze that way. And so when you take it out of the mold, there's like little pits in it. And it's my pet one now. But
Did you sand them out, Wendy?
no,
Were you able to
because
sand them out? No.
no, I wasn't. And you can take a UV resin and go over it. I couldn't get that to work. So I'm doing them now in 3 pours in order to keep it from doing that.
Because your UV light's pretty good for that for the thicker resin. Yeah, it's UV light's very good.
Well, yeah, but Unicone's not, honestly, Unicone's not really that thick. And I warm up part A first a little bit. It's a 2-part 1-to-1, so it's not that bad. It just, because the dice, you can tell from the shape, the dice are in the mold are kind of funnel shaped, I guess you would say. So there's the hole at the top, and then the mold itself is cut down the side so that you can open it and take it out. So you have to kind of secure the sides so stuff doesn't run out, right?
Right.
So when you pour it in there, the bubbles all try to go up to the only hole that's up there. And if they can't get all the way out, then they just gather around the rest of it. And it took me, like I said, I've only started since COVID. So I've only been doing this since March, and it's taken me until about last month to get really good at it, to keep it from doing that.
That's okay. We learn by our own, mistakes and stuff, and it's just trial and error. And like I said, the same thing with paint pours. You just have to keep at it.
Yeah, that's why I was trying not to laugh because I'm like, oh God, I'm so there with you. The resin is just like, huh. This is, okay, so another thing I got while I was waiting for the dice molds to come from Italy was because we have the big love sign that you saw at the opening. We have the big love sign outside. I got a mold from Let's Resin with the love sign that now I'm doing one by one. I'm doing in a series of love is this, love is that. So this is Love is Steampunk, which is really cool. That fits in with the sci-fi con theme kind of stuff. I'm calling it nerdy chic. And then I have them like in different ones. Like I've got one for the, I did one for the museum, and I'm trying to do like a rainbow one to support LGBTQ. I haven't learned how to do that yet, but I'm getting there.
You'll
These
get there.
little guys,
You'll get there.
these little guys, I totally love these little guys. It's so much fun when you go to a con and people are wearing them and they walk around and everyone's like, where did you get that? These are inspired by the brain slugs from Futurama. And I have reimagined them in a lot of different races, not just the little green ones. And they're totally safe hats. And I included them just because I love them and I have them in my show that's up until the beginning of November. These are the tabletop version because very often people would come to our booth and say, I can't wear it in the office, but I'd like one for my desk. So they kind of like it's their secret statement to their boss somehow. So even though their boss is not that hip, so they don't know. But yeah, I have like a range of tabletop ones, and then I have the ones that you can wear on your head. And I have one, I don't know if you can see me, but I've got one that has a tribble under it because a friend told me to make it where they're taking over the tribble home planet. So there you go.
I love it. My favorite of the hats is the photo of your husband wearing one.
Oh,
Yes.
you should see him at the one con. We have this big Darth Vader helmet. It's behind me here somewhere. It's like a licensed Darth Vader helmet. It's the real thing. And he would dress up like lounging Darth Vader because we have the robe that has all the Darth Vader stuff on it. And he put the little hat on. And then we had went to Starbucks before the one con and he forgot he didn't forget he was wearing his helmet, but it didn't occur to him. It didn't have a place for the straw. So he's sitting there going like, he has Darth Vader helmet on and he's trying to drink like this, and I got it on video. It was hilarious.
Nice.
Yeah.
So we only have a few minutes left, so I'm going to ask you a quick question before Mark sees if anybody else wants to ask you a question. But as you know, I got very excited when you said you were trying a whole new art form. I know a lot of artists on campus have felt a little, the artist version of writer's block, artist block this year.
Yeah.
And I was really excited to find out somebody, I mean, you make a lot of things for sci-fi cons. They're a big part of your life. And I know those were shut down this year, but rather than, let that stymie you, you decided to take that as a time to learn something new and find some inspiration. Was that something you had been planning to do all along, or did you just take a chance when you saw it? You said, this is an opportunity where I have some time where I normally wouldn't to learn and try something new.
Right. That's a good question. The honest answer is that last Christmas I tried to order dice from, it turned out to be a disrespectful place, or disreputable, not disrespectful. The ducky dice I wanted to order for the guys in my family. And after arguing with Etsy and getting my money back, because it wasn't Etsy, I'm sorry, it was PayPal, and got my money back for those, I was like, well, I'll just make them myself, and started watching the videos and stuff. So I was, by I would say January, I was thinking about it, but I didn't really, I didn't think I would be able to do it because, the structure that we have isn't really conducive to, if you're pouring resin, you can't stop and go take care of someone then,
Yeah.
And I didn't want to bring it home because I have birds and I didn't think that the fumes were good for them. So
Yeah.
that's why I was trying to make my own ducky dice, and that's how that started. And then I went crazy because I couldn't get those molds in time. So I had to get some other molds to practice with the resin. And then I was like, well, this is pretty cool. So yeah, that's how that happened. Now I have ducky dice. So yay. And I have cows, and I have, I made the rabbits from Monty Python. I got little teeny rabbit inclusions, and I painted blood on them. So now they're the rabbits, Yeah.
Yep.
I'm having too much fun with it all.
Great.
I like the cartoon Bunnicula, which is
yeah.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, I forgot all about that. Yeah.
Well,
Very
thanks,
cool.
Wendy.
Any other questions from our other participants?
Great. Well, thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right.
Thank
Well, I want to thank all the artists for joining us tonight. I appreciate it. Thank you for telling us a little about your work. It's sometimes hard to articulate what we do, but it's great to give people an idea of what your influences and your processes are. It makes it also much easier to understand if it's not the life you live yourself. And I especially want to thank Marc for joining us tonight, not only as a featured
Yes.
artist, but as our host. Thank you. If anybody is interested in coming to campus, we are open on a limited basis. We are open on Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays from noon to 5 p.m. Arches Gallery W9 is only open on Saturdays from noon to 5 p.m. But if you're interested in coming to our community market, those are on Saturdays from, I believe the new time is 11 to 4. Is that, Laura, is that correct? Do you know,
Yeah, I
Wendy?
think so.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
11 to 4.
And
So
our,
that's a great
11
time to come
It's
to the
11 to
market.
4.
To 4, yeah, it's new October hours, so it's a great time to come to the market and to come through the artist buildings and see, because a lot of these featured shows are up again, just like we did in the before time.
And I'm drawing on the wall too, so yeah.
Yeah.
and Arches is open on Saturdays now from 11 to 4:30, so it is
Oh, okay, great.
an hour
Thank
earlier.
you for
It's
telling.
more overlap with
Good,
And we've
good. I'm
been
glad to
letting-
hear that. All
We've
right.
been letting folks back in our studios, but at a socially distanced way.
Yeah.
So, that's kind of fun too.
Yeah, our front galleries in each building are open, but in 5, 6, 7, 8, and 10, it's up to the artists who are in the buildings as to whether they're comfortable letting people back in the studio areas. But if it's not crowded, most artists are doing that. So please stop by if you're getting bored and need to get out of the house a bit. Workhouse is a great place to come
Early
and
Christmas
not run into
shopping?
too many people. We're keeping it socially distanced. We've got plexiglass up in the front and hand sanitizer through the buildings.
Yeah,
So-
please remember, support your small business, which is what we are. We are also the arts, because the big companies don't need all that money. We need to support small business. So with that, back to Sharon.
All right, great. Well, thank you again, everyone, for joining us tonight. Have a great rest of your weekend.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Sharon. Thank you all.
Okay.
Thanks, Sharon.
Bye.
Thank Mark.
Bye,
Bye.
everybody.
Bye, Laura. Bye, Wendy.
Bye.
Bye.